Hey there, my name is George Mahali and I'm part of the planning team for TEDxConcordiaUPortland. Today I'm here with TylerTervooren and we're having a chat about his upcoming talk for our 2014 event. Hope you'll enjoy the chat.
Yeah, so what's our goal for this?
Our goal is just to hang out.
To hang out? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
because I don't actually know exactly, I still don't know exactly what my talk is going to be.
I don't really know what this conversation is supposed to be. So, I don't know, I guess I would just ask first, like, how did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a really tiny town called Rainier, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
It's about an hour up Highway 30 from Portland. And it's a really small town, about 1,500 people, and our one claim to fame used to be we had a nuclear power plant.
Crazy. I didn't even know they had nuclear power in Oregon.
Yeah, well they did. They don't anymore because the plant started to melt down, so they closed it.
Kind of like the Fukushima incident, right?
Not quite as bad.
Not as bad.
They closed it before anything bad happened. But who knows, like maybe my children will have like 6 eyes and stuff.
And was writing something that you were doing when you were younger, like when you were in high school or even like grade school and stuff like that?
Compulsory writing. So the fact that I write now for a living, and that's still a weird thing to say that I write for a living, is a total surprise to me. Because growing up I hated writing. Because the only time I did it was in school, and the only time, the only stuff I wrote for school was required, and everything that was required was boring and uninteresting to me. So everything I wrote was not like anything that I was super interested in. So discovering writing at a later age, out of college, it was kind of like discovering a new hobby for the first time. Yeah. And
writing wasn't what your college path was gearing you towards, right?
No, not at all. I went to college to become an architect.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Portland State. And to give you a little bit more backstory on that, I started from about I was pretty sure I was going to be an architect from about the age of like 4. I used to cut the house plans out of the homes section in the daily or in the weekly like Sunday Oregonian, and I would like cut them up and make Frankenstein floor plans from them. And my mom kept like this big folder of plans that I would make, and everyone in my family said like, you're going to be an architect. And so I went to college and I was like, I'm going to be an architect. And then I spent about a year studying architecture, and I was like, I am not going to be an architect.
Crazy.
But I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, so I started studying construction, and I thought like, well, I don't want to like abandon the idea of designing and building and that kind of thing entirely. So I started studying construction, and I ended up getting a job working in construction management, and I did that for a few years.
Was that the safe route if you were
that was
choosing
a safe
like an
route.
alternative?
That was a safe route. That was like, I didn't know what to do, so I tried to find something to pivot into that would like build off of what I had before, but like the premise was kind of broken from the beginning, so the pivot didn't really work. But I spent a few years doing that, and then my writing career didn't start until I was laid off from that job. And that's kind of when all that started.
Seems to be like a common impetus for, I don't know how to say it without sounding cheesy, but like this new era of people who are making a living through something they're doing online. And of course, like the first name that comes to mind for a lot of people is like, oh, I heard about that after I read 4 Hour Workweek. Or heard about that guy, Chris Gillibo. Is there anybody that comes to mind for you that kind of inspired you to be thinking about this alternative career path after construction kind of turned different ways?
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was laid off, I wasn't quite sure exactly what I was going to do. I had tried like blogging before, and I'd had a pretty unsuccessful go at it.
What was that? That was a veggie blog or something like that, right?
That's a good description for it, a veggie blog. I had a blog called Frugally Green.
That's right.
Which at the time I was super into, like, like my parents instilled me with like a super passion for frugality. And I was doing a lot of work in the green building sector. So I was, studying
within the construction world.
Within construction world. So like that kind of spurred a lot of green living thoughts in me, and I was always kind of interested in that. So I tried to marry those two ideas and make a blog, like just like everybody in the world has a blog, about something. And it was I mean, it was fun. It was fun, but I wasn't. It turned out I wasn't. It wasn't fun without an audience, right? So it wasn't something I could do, or I could feel inspired to do without having like an audience to like pay attention to me.
So you weren't getting 300 comments a post on that one?
Exactly, and so I realized like I should be doing something that that I would want to do and that I would be passionate about, regardless of who was there paying attention. And that wasn't it. And so I shut that down just before getting laid off. Actually, I was doing that concurrently, just kind of as like a little hobby.
So building a side project.
Yeah, building a little side project while I was still working in construction. And in 2010, this is kind of like a side note. In 2010, I made the very first New Year's resolution I'd ever made in my entire life. I always thought New Year's resolutions were really dumb, and you know everybody fails at them, and like why set them in the first place? But I decided to give it a shot in 2010, and my one resolution was to quit my job by June of 2010.
So 6 months later.
So 6 months later, yeah. By the middle of June, I'm going to quit my job and be doing something else. And then I got laid off in February.
I don't mean to laugh at the laid off part, but just like the timing of it, being like, well, looks like somebody else made it happen.
So it was like this opportunity was handed to me, and it was one of those opportunities that what's the quote about opportunity? They say it's like everyone misses it because it's disguised as hard work, or it's disguised as something inconvenient.
Like challenges,
yeah, exactly.
But that also depends on the mindset of the person, right?
Sure,
you
exactly.
have to actually believe that.
Yeah, but at the time, I was thinking like, all right, it's February. Like I am not ready, like to be like switching careers yet. Like I haven't really even.
This is February 2010.
February 2010, and so I was kind of in this like panic mode a little bit. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I decided to just go with my gut and try to get something off the ground again, because I'd really enjoyed writing. I just hadn't directed it down the right path. And I was worried, like I hadn't thought this through enough, but I let myself take the chance on trying something new. And I didn't go out and search for a new job in construction, because I was afraid that if I went and got a new job right away, which I could have, right? Like I could have, I had lots of references. I could have gone and got another job. I was afraid that if I didn't grasp the opportunity then, I might not ever do it again, right? Because you can settle into comfort again very quickly, and then all of your big plans and dreams become a distant kind of side project again. So I was kind of catapulted against my will into this moment where I was like, I could grasp it and run with it and see what happens. And even if I failed, I was only like 25 at the time, so like plenty of time to start over.
Sure.
Or I could go the way I always had before, and just try to go find another safe job.
And where were your family and friends at this point? Were they encouraging you to take this chance again with this online thing, or?
It was a mixed bag. It was like everybody was cautiously supportive.
Cautiously supportive.
Yeah, that's the way I would. That's the way I would describe it.
So you're saying you want to do this thing online?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And my favorite example was my grandma, who's now almost 91 years old. And she would call me once in a while and talk to me on the phone, and she would say, "How's the internet going?" And I would try to explain to her what I was doing. I'm writing, and I'm trying to like build this little business and like write books and guides and things, and get people to pay attention to what I'm doing. And she had no idea what was going on, but she was absolutely certain, like as all grandmas are, like, well, yours must be the best in the world. So like I know you're going to do great.
So you had your first fan right there.
That was my first fan.
She subscribed even though she didn't have.
Yeah, and actually one of the first comments, like for the first 6 months of my writing, my other grandma was like one of the only commenters.
Was this on Frugally Green or then?
No, this is on the news site.
Awesome.
Riskology.co, and so it was an interesting, tumultuous period, because my family, my grandmas anyways, were all super supportive and you know, they had no idea what was going on, but they were very supportive. My parents were like, we support you, we don't know what's going on. Also, like, just in case, like, we've been looking at like Craigslist for job offers. Pay attention to these.
Standard, of course. You know, there's got to be something out there.
Yeah, and then all of my friends were kind of like, that sounds cool. I would never do it. Like, you're kind of crazy, but good luck, I guess.
And who were you reading at the time, or like who were like the role models that you were trying to follow in terms of like how they were writing?
Well, the reason why I went forward with it, and the site that I created was, you know, Riskology, about taking risks, and I felt like it was the perfect time. You know, like that was this. I kind of stumbled upon this message that I wanted.
2010.
Yeah, exactly. This message that I wanted to send, and I was catapulted in this situation where I could like realistically live it, and it felt like the perfect time to do it. But I didn't quite know how, and so. Like, yeah, I definitely, like, I probably wouldn't have gone forward with the project if I hadn't seen other people do, you know, be successful with other projects, you know, that worked in the same vein. So at the time, like, I was reading J.D. Roth, who's another Portlander. Get Rich Slowly.
Awesome.
Get Rich Slowly. And
the first personal finance,
yep,
like, big blog,
I really looked up to him. And
also a fellow Portlander, right? Was he living in Portland at the time, too?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
And then later on, I was reading, you know, Chris Guillebeau, Art of Nonconformity, Leo Babauta, Zen Habits. Yep,
yeah,
all those. Yeah,
top 10 blog of like 2009.
Yep, the biggest bloggers in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a message that was, you know, they all had a message that was really concrete and really connected with me, and then also were able to build, you know, a business that supported them around it. And so I was looking at that as kind of like a model, right? Right? Like, you know, if you can tap into a message, you know, if you have something to say that's really important to people, and if you can inspire and help other people achieve their goals.
But it's authentic to the author too, that's the thing, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely,
Zen
it's unique. Yeah, like I couldn't,
Leo.
like no one could go do Zen Habits like Leo does, right? That would be like a failure waiting to happen.
Like Chris.
Exactly, or any site, right? Like every author is unique. So anybody who tries to copy another, right? It's just a carbon copy. It's not going to do as well.
Was there an emulation period though, where you felt like you were definitely like writing a little bit like Chris, or a little bit like Leo?
Yep,
or
and
something?
you know what? I'm coming up on 4 years writing, and I feel like I'm just now starting to actually develop my own voice.
And you're spotting the Tyler emulators. They're out there, I'm sure.
Maybe, I guess so. I don't pay a lot of attention.
Like the biggest honor, I bet.
It is an honor. Like, but yeah, for the longest time, my writing was mimicry, right? It was like seeing what the people who inspired me, how they wrote, and trying to, you know, write something that, you know, in my topic area, write it for my audience, but like basically copy this, you know, the style that they used. And like I think that's an important period to go through, you know, as a writer, or in any, you know, or if you're doing anything, right? Learning to do anything, you know, part of learning is like seeing others do something successfully and then mimicking that. But you can't do that forever, right? Eventually you have to kind of like get to a point where you understand the rules, understand how other people do their thing, and then you know take those pieces and try to develop something of your own.
And what kept you pushing forward? Like, were you starting to get comments? Were you getting subscribers, or did you start getting your grandpa writing on there too?
Yeah, eventually I got my whole family commenting.
Oh, that's it.
So I was like, all right, I've reached it.
I made it.
I'm like, I've made it. No, yeah, I was lucky enough to get some traction early on. You know, that's something that I'm really grateful for now, because I realize many people starting new projects struggle for much longer than I did in the beginning. But at the same time, getting a big push in the beginning kind of set me up for this expectation that like the Times would always be booming, right? Like every month would be bigger than the last, and that hasn't been the case, right? Like my site and the audience and everything has grown in waves, you know, times of great heights and times of you know, of lows and ebbs and flows and whatnot. And the first time that I went through that kind of boom and bust cycle, it was really depressing, because, you know, I'd launched the site and I was, you know, working feverishly to build an audience.
Were you
and,
doing
like,
lots of posts? Like,
doing lots of posts, doing lots of guest posts, trying
so what does
to,
that
like,
mean? Like a post every day, or like every
well,
other
I was
day?
writing every day, but I was, I was publishing twice a week. I was writing a guest post for somebody else's blog, probably once a week, once or every other week, trying to, like, I was on news sites trying to pitch my story to reporters, and like I was just trying to do everything all at once, and it was working. Like it was not a very concerted effort. Like it was very disparate.
Were there any big breaks that you got, like on the front page of Yahoo?
Yeah,
or Dig
on the
or
first
whatever
month
that
of the
was?
site going live, it ended up on the front page of an interview that I was a part of. That was almost completely unrelated to the site. Ended up on the front page of MSN.com, and there was a link to the website, and that sent like
how did you know?
Thousands of people all at once.
Did your server crash?
Yeah, that's how I knew, because I had a little email alert set up through my email marketing company. Like anytime somebody new subscribes to my newsletter, I would get like a little email saying like Yahoo, like right, and I would, like, in the very, very beginning, I was getting like 2 or 3 of those a day.
Cool.
And then I woke up one morning and there was like 300 of them in my inbox. And like that kept going on for like 3 days. And I was like, where are all these people coming from? And then I started getting emails from people, and they're like, saw you on MSN. I was like, MSN?
Awesome.
And then I went to the site, and like there it was. Like,
what was the interview?
The interview was was about people living very frugally. So I was like, there was a call out from a woman named Liz Weston, who is a big like financial writer for MSN Money, and she was interviewing people who lived on less than $20,000 a year, and I was this like scrappy dude that is like super frugal, and like I totally fit the profile, and so I wrote her my little pitch about my story, how I like manage my money, and like how frugal I was or whatever. I was just trying to get some like press coverage. I was like, if anything sounds like familiar to me, I'm gonna like write to this reporter and see if they'll cover me. And she responded and took a little interview. And
this was over the phone or via email?
Yeah, it was over the phone. Yeah, exactly. And I told her about my site that I was trying to get going. And like that was totally unrelated to the interview, but I was like, like I'm doing this like site thing, like this website thing, and like if you could just mention it, it'd be amazing. And
That's
she was
awesome.
like, yeah, I don't know, I'll see what I can do, right? Like she was
That's crazy.
But
so
she
was in
mentioned
that
it,
power play, and that's amazing. And so that was in the first month. So there you were.
That
like,
was in
okay,
the first month, and then all of a sudden, like things took off.
Did that give you more?
Yeah,
did you feel more pressure to keep like writing and?
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword a little bit, in the sense that like all that momentum and growth kind of like inspires you to to keep going and do more, but it also like especially in the beginning when you're not really comfortable with yourself and you're like what you're doing, like you're still like learning the ropes, like you don't really know, I didn't have a business model yet. I was just writing. I was just trying to build an audience, and
like the subscribers came in, and all of a sudden now you're like, wow, I have to
and
always hit that plateau.
The stress level kind of went up, because I was like, all of a sudden I was very worried about every word that I published, right? Like I was reading over my articles 100 times, because I was like, now it's not just my like
There's
mom,
it's not
just like my mom and my grandma
reading
reading this. It's a few more people. It's people I don't know, and like sometimes I would write stuff. And people would write things back that they were like kind of mean, right? And they're like,
what
really,
do you do
like,
with the haters? What do you do with the haterade comments?
well, today I completely ignore them. Right, like, well, I don't completely ignore them. I never respond anymore. If I get an email like that criticizes something I wrote, like I'll read it, because I don't want to like sometimes like criticism, even if it's like ugly, comes with like a grain of truth that
like
I
it's
can
rooted
like
somewhere. Where
rooted
like,
somewhere, and like if I can make use of it, then I'll make use of it. Like if they criticize something that I think is useful for me to change, then like I'll try to like be open-minded and recognize it. But in general, for my own well-being and happiness, I might read one. I'll read like a hate mail one time, and if I see something useful, I'll take it, and then I delete the email and I never look at it again.
Interesting.
I don't let that. I just try not to let that stuff into my life.
Yeah.
Because you don't want. It's hard enough, right? Life is hard enough for anybody to to make a real go of it. and do something really to try to do something really big with your life. To let criticism and haters like into that situation, like why compound the difficulty, right? Like just focus on, the way I look at it is like I need to just focus on my mission, and it's not going to speak perfectly to everybody. So why try to change it for people who don't like it anyways?
No, I've heard that. I don't know where was the first time I heard it. I'm sure it was probably on one of Tim's posts, Tim Ferriss. Like his blog was always just something I was always reading. But I think it was even in the 4-Hour Workweek where they talked about just different concepts that were just short little sayings or phrases that made you kind of think and then maybe change your habits. Like the Peter Drucker quote, "What gets measured gets managed." And then there was another one that essentially said something to the effect of, if you're trying to please everybody, then you're not going to end up pleasing nobody.
No one.
Yeah. So just to that same effect, like, not everybody's going to agree with a post you write about. The most recent one I remember reading was about New Year's resolutions and actually talking about more getting into the habit of making the change that would be the end goal for the resolution. Right?
Yeah. So, what was the...
I don't know, I was just kind of talking about, because I like that post.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, that article was about my running habit. So like, I haven't been like super successful with habits throughout my life, but one that I've built like pretty successfully, and I'm quite proud of, is the fact that I've been running 3 days a week, just with the exception of a few like injuries and illnesses here and there. I've been running 3 days a week, 5 miles a week, or 5 miles a run for like 5 years now.
That's powerful. How many miles is that?
I was adding up the other day, and I think like when I add in like my marathon training, I think I'm over 4 or 5. I'm not very good at math, so it's either
you probably have by now been able to
or,
run around the world if you went in one straight line.
Not quite, but
you looked up into that one, right?
I did.
See what the circumference is.
It's like 4 or 5. It's like 4 or 5,000 miles.
Crazy! Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I think I'll make that a goal. Make that the goal, is like to do the circumference of the Earth.
Awesome.
Right, like,
that's epic.
Just keep going.
Were the epic quests part of advanced riskology? Well, now it's riskology, right?
Yeah, riskology.co is the...
So it started off as advancedriskology.com, and now it's riskology.co. But I remember when I first checked out the site, that was one of the things that kind of drew me in. You were talking about these goals, these big like life sort of goals that you were setting in different spheres or different spaces. And one of them is to run a marathon on every single continent. Then another one is to climb how many highest peaks are there?
So the 7 summits.
So the highest peak on each
continent. Yep. And actually, so when I started, this is another thing. So this is another way my kind of thinking about goals and habits and whatnot have evolved over time. When I first started advanced riskology, I had this list, like a bucket list, like everybody else's, and I call it the 1% Club.
Yes.
And it was this list of things that I wanted to do that I thought that less than 1% of the world would probably ever try to do. And there's a whole slew of things, and the ones that I focused on were climbing and running. So I wanted to run a marathon on every continent, and I wanted to climb a mountain climb the tallest mountain on every continent, which is the 7 summits. And I realized after some time, and if you go to the site now, you'll see that I've eliminated the list because I've changed the way that I think about pursuing big goals. I decided that it's not super useful for me to keep a running list of all these big things, but instead to pick one big thing and just chip away at it, like little bit by little bit, and not let myself get distracted by other big goals. Because I found I was getting kind of, as I was working through the list and trying to collect these experiences and whatnot, I realized that I was taking a really haphazard approach to things, right? Like, in some ways there was like this synchronicity kind of thing where, I had this list of goals and, opportunities in life would appear that would allow me to kind of get closer to one of them. But it would be like a little step here on this one and a little step here on this one. And that was all very nice, but it was kind of starting to get a little bit depressing that I wasn't ever completing anything. And I don't think that the goal of life is to complete, You know, I don't think the meaning of life. I don't think the meaning of life is to complete goals. You know, but it's like, I think it is to feel like you have like, for me anyways, to feel like you have a set purpose and you're working towards something. And for me, like feeling like I'm making regular progress was really important. So I decided a year or two ago that I was just going to focus on running. And at the time, I'd only ran like, I think 1 or 2 marathons.
And this was after you had already summited a couple of the 7 highest peaks, right?
Yep, I'd already done two of the peaks. And 2 marathons at that point.
Was Russia one of those peaks? I remember reading the Russia post at one point. Talking about like you can't speak their language and you guys are just playing cards or something like that.
Yeah, so I sat in a hut.
In Siberia, essentially, right?
Well, not Siberia, but down in the Caucasus. Yeah, I sat on the side of a mountain with a bunch of Russians who didn't speak English and I didn't speak Russian. And yeah, we played like, we played some card game. I'm not sure what I played actually. They just handed me cards and they would like kind of grunt and make this when I was playing bad, and they would like give me the thumbs up when I was playing powerful. I have no idea what happened. Like for like 11 days, I barely know what happened on that mountain.
But you made it to the top of.
But I made it to the top and back down and had a really good time. Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know what we diverged from. Oh, the running.
The running.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
running becoming the focus.
I was like, I want to make some serious progress on something, and I'm not going to do that by like, by trying to like fritter away my time at different, you know, in different things. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to focus on this. And now I've run, you know, I decided to focus on that. And now I've run 6 of the 7 marathons. And by the time, I think by the time that this video airs, I'm not sure when it'll air, but I'll have finished the 7th in Antarctica.
What's the 7th one?
The 7th is in Antarctica.
Antarctica. How many people are running that marathon?
1. It's me. Yeah.
No way. Is that it? It's just you going down there?
That's it. So the story is there's actually 2. There's actually 2 organized marathons.
Because I remember hearing about one from Dean Karnassus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's 2 organized marathons.
Super marathon runner.
On Antarctica. And one is incredibly expensive, and one is unbelievably incredibly expensive.
Crazy.
And
not to mention getting down there, too.
I believe in investing in experiences, but I'm also like a pretty big DIYer, and I'm frugal as hell. So I was like, screw all that. I'm going to do my own. I'm going to make my own marathon. And so I had a connection with a person who runs some marketing campaigns or does a lot of work with with one of the cruise operators who goes to Antarctica from Argentina. And got in touch with them, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll let you come on with us for a special rate." And I was like, "Yeah, but can I run a marathon while I'm down there?" And they're like, "You want to run a marathon?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, it's kind of like this goal, this thing I'm doing: marathons, continents, Antarctica." They're like, "That's crazy. No, you probably can't run a marathon." I was like, "Well, can we just like make one up and I can?" And so basically, what we ended up figuring out was like, there wasn't a way for me to actually run a marathon by myself. They weren't going to like let me like get off the boat and just like disappear into the snow for like 26 miles.
Where's that crazy American? I don't know, man.
But what we agreed on is that I could, because the ship makes 2 stops a day, I could start my marathon at our first stop, get on the ship, you know, run onto the ship basically. Do like 250 laps around the ship while it's on its way to the second port, and then run off onto the next stop.
That might even be like a first, right? Like who's ever run that much on a boat?
Yeah, maybe I'll like write an email to Guinness World Records or something. Or
absolutely. I mean, you've already.
Sure
actually, last summer you helped set a world record too, right?
That's true. Yeah,
that was epic. Was that what? If I was going back to the Tyler that had the lists on the advanced riskology, or when that just first started out, was setting a Guinness Book of World Records one of those goals?
No, I added it to the list after I did it.
After the fact. I don't know if that counts, but we'll say it is. That's a pretty epic one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just an unconventional way to try to achieve the same goal.
And I know we were chatting about this a week or 2 ago, but have you been thinking about what comes after the 7th continent? Like once you had now run a marathon in every continent in the world, like what are you doing next?
Yeah.
In terms of the big goal.
I don't know.
Figure it out.
I've been purposely not thinking about it, just because organizing the adventure and doing everything else has been like kind of challenging enough. I didn't want to distract myself from. I didn't want to distract myself from the mission ahead of me, and I also I want to be careful about something I've been thinking about, and I haven't really developed, a long-term vision on how this all works, but I want to be careful for myself at least to not turn into the type of person that is just chasing goal after goal after goal. Like I said, I don't think the purpose of life is to achieve goals. I think there's something bigger and more meaningful and probably easier than that. That's like
yeah, I mean the process and how your thinking has evolved sounds really kind of like what has become the purpose of it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know, but what I know is I don't want to be the type of person that that chases a goal and gets closer and closer, and the closer you get, all you can do is think about what comes next. And I want to complete things that are important to me, and this 7-continent, they call it the 7 Continents Club for runners, is important to me, and I want to respect the process. I want to get through with it, and I want to have some time to think about it, and, reflect on it, and not just be like, oh, well, I'm almost finished with this one, it's in the bag. Let's just what comes next, right? And not take lessons from that, and not, there's a lot to learn from that could get skipped over if you, by jumping into the next thing too soon, I think. So in a way, it's kind of, there's some anxiety and stress around all right, I'm gonna finish this thing that I've been working so hard on. What comes next? I don't know, what's my identity? But at the same time, I think there's a bigger opportunity in just letting myself hang out for a little while and reflect on the challenge.
That's awesome. Backtracking a little bit, when or how did the blog, which started out as a blog, kind of evolve into what has now become a business, the business that is supporting your career? You've eventually found your voice,
that's been quite a tumultuous process itself. So, I did it basically by watching other people do it, right? My business model now is not incredibly different from other people who make a living writing and selling books and courses and things. And so I started off by writing an ebook, and I sold that, and that kind of did well enough to finance me for a few months. And to be honest, to be perfectly honest, I've been pretty in terms of how much time I spend working on the blog that I write for free and just do for fun, I spend about 90% of my time doing that, and about 10% of my time working on the business.
They're two separate things.
They're
connected.
They're very, very connected. They overlap. They live on the same site, but they're two different things in my mind. Kind of. That's not the best way to put it, but basically I spend way more time doing stuff for free and just having fun than I do working on business stuff, which honestly I think is, in the end, is the goal, right? Is to spend more time working on stuff that excites you and not doing it for the money. But at the same time, you have to build something that can support you if you want to do it for the long term. And so
was that how to gain the first 1,000 subscribers ebook?
Yeah, that was everything I write is kind of based on what I learned.
I learned how to get subscribers. You guys should try this same process.
It's all learning based, right? It's my whole shtick is real life education from the trenches. Here's this thing I learned. Here's all the stuff that worked really well and you should do it, and here's all the stuff that really sucked and you should not do it. And so I started with this ebook, and I sold that, and then I built and that did all right. So I built a course about how to do the ebook.
Which seems, I see it in different versions, and still even now, somebody that comes to mind, I don't know how familiar you are with David's site McGarlin.
Yeah.
He started with an interview show, and from his interview show, he realized that his audience was also interested in doing interview shows. So then he created a course on how to do interview shows, and then he realized that another segment of his audience was interested in learning how he created the course to give interview shows.
Yep.
So then he created a course on how to create a course.
Yep.
And that's been apparently doing really well too. But it's like all things that he learned to do, and then he learned to do them like really well.
Yeah, it's a good business model, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody, like, if you find an audience that wants to know how to do stuff, or wants to learn how to do things, and like you can go out and you have the ability to learn how to do them, then why not share the knowledge? And like, why not make the process easier for people by, like, if you can pioneer the methods and try new stuff, and then distill that into into something that that everybody can use. And so like that's exactly how I do all of my stuff. Is I learn how to do something, and then that usually takes a long time, and then I try to like turn that into something that other people can do faster.
Awesome.
Like, kind of like I'm a guinea pig, I guess.
And I know that aside from just riskology, you're also involved in what comes to mind for me, but maybe there's more. There's like 2 other big projects that are happening here in Portland. One being Pioneer Nation, and the other being World Domination Summit. How do those kind of fit into to your lifestyle?
Those are.
And for those of people who don't know, like, what are like those 2 events?
Yeah. So the World Domination Summit is a gathering of unconventional folks. Now 3,000 people every summer here in Portland. Founded and started by Chris Gillibo, who we've talked about earlier.
Super blogger, just Superman.
And I got involved with that in 2010 as well. At the end of 2010, he was getting ready to launch this big project, and he was building kind of a local team to help him put it together, and he invited me to be on the team. And I didn't really know what it was or what was going on, but like I always believed in what Chris was doing, so I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. And from there, like, we started with 500 people in June of 2011, the first year, and this last year we brought 3,000 people. Crazy. We were at the we set a world record on the river, in the Willamette River. We had all kinds of stuff going on, and like it was our biggest and best year yet. And now we're getting ready for 2014, and it's just this big gathering of people. Some people are bloggers, some people are entrepreneurs, some people don't know what they're doing, and they just want to be with they just want to be around inspiring people, and they have their own inspiring stories from their own lives, but it's all geared to answer the question, how do you live a remarkable life in a conventional world, right? In a world that, basically sets up rules for you and for how you're supposed to live. How do you break those rules and still exist in society and have a great life?
So essentially you're facilitating an experience that you went through, except you're facilitating it to now 3,000 people.
Yeah, and it's really not us either, right? Like we're just the minions behind the scenes. So there's a team of like, there's kind of like 5 or 6 core team members, and then like every year, and then like the team grows bigger as the event draws near every year. But the stories and everything that comes out of the event is kind of like, honestly, comes from the people that we bring in to WDS. We have amazing speakers that come from all over the world to talk to these really excited people, and so that's really what the one piece of the magic of WDS, right? One piece is like the inspiration and the stories and the learning that happens from the stage, but like a much bigger part of it, and honestly I think the piece that most people connect with, is just the authentic connections that happen between the attendees themselves. And like that's what people seem to enjoy the most, right? They enjoy the talks, they enjoy coming, but they really like the crux of their experiences in meeting other people who they didn't know existed that are just like them.
It's so interesting because like now I'm just thinking about it and how you just explained it and how I experienced it first, because that's actually where we met in 2012 at World Domination Summit. What does a typical week look like for you? if there was a typical week?
One of my big aspirations for 2014 is to have one. Is to have a typical week. I've kind of, coming out of the corporate world, and like the very regimented construction management world, I kind of embraced this like DIY entrepreneur, like throw away the schedule, like do what feels right, like when it feels right, kind of mentality. And that worked for a little while, but what I've realized over time is like schedules and routines are actually quite useful for getting things done. And so right now, like I've been building this routine for myself, which involves like I always run in the morning, at least 3 days a week.
Yep.
So that's like the first thing I do when I get out of bed, and that's like kind of non-negotiable because that's like my number one habit. And then after that, I have like like I'm involved with probably 3 or 4 projects. I got my own thing. I've got WDS and Pioneer Nation, which is this other event I'm helping out with, and a few other random things. And I try to go directly into my my hardest or most mentally challenging work first thing after breakfast. So after I get done with my run and eat breakfast, I try to do that. And that's because like you run out of mental energy.
Is that revolved around writing oftentimes?
Yeah, oftentimes it's writing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like since that's the core of kind of everything I do, I try to do that first.
Does that happen at home or at Starbucks on Hawthorne?
That usually happens. That usually happens at home in the morning. But Starbucks is a frequent haunt of mine. Yeah.
But of yours, and I think a lot of other internet entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right?
I go to lots of coffee shops and whatnot around Portland because we have so many great ones. But Starbucks is one place where I know that I can sit down for 4 hours with like 1 cup of tea and not like feel bad about sitting there for a really long time.
Because you can get a giant cup of tea.
You can get a giant cup of tea.
Yeah, I've had those before.
Yeah, so I'm like, like if Starbucks had a like a triple platinum like lifetime achievement membership,
like stamp my punch card. I got a couple of these.
Yeah, I would be on the list.
So wake up, run, breakfast, do the
work,
writing.
Yep, do the writing, do the hard work before lunch. Like I always try to get the hardest work, and I don't always succeed. Like lots of times, like I'm still trying to build the habit, right? Like I get distracted all the time. I'll end up on Facebook, and I'm like, damn, how did I get here?
That happens to you too?
And yeah, I think it's a familiar.
Yeah, it's
familiar
so many
occurrence.
people, and especially when you can have it anywhere. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I try to do the hardest work in the morning before lunch. Then I'll eat lunch at home, and then I usually need to change my location. Like I run out of like kind of creative juice, kind of run out of energy, like sitting around at home all morning. So I need to like get out and refresh myself. So I'll try to like take a walk and go for a walk, and that's usually enough to like gather my thoughts for the afternoon. And by the time that's done, like I've arrived at the coffee shop, and now I'm ready to sit down and work some more.
Cool.
And then it used to be I would work into the afternoon and then into the evening, and then sometimes into the night, and like be like, oh damn, it's like 2 a.m. I should go to bed, and then like skip my alarm in the morning. I'm trying to like now force myself to stop working by 6 p.m.
Awesome.
And I don't always make it, but that's the
yeah. Sometimes you have momentum kind of carrying you.
Yeah,
like, wow, I'm getting
because what I found is like disconnecting in the evenings, like we have this, especially in America, we have this kind of cultural mentality of like do more, do more, do more, do more. Like put out as much as you can, be more efficient. Like more efficiency shouldn't mean more leisure. It should mean like more productivity. Like do stuff more, do faster. And there's some value to that, but at the same time, doing that over and over and over again, like the quality of work eventually degrades, right? Like human beings need like rest and leisure, I think, anyways. And so like taking time to just relax and like hang out with my girlfriend, or like or just sit around and pet a cat, in the evening with a book or something, is like really important for being able to wake up in the morning and do the hard work again. Because if you're like wearing yourself down into the evening, it's really, really hard to like focus yourself in the morning again, because you didn't get enough space to kind of like refresh.
Break away from it.
Yeah.
So being your own boss, do you give yourself like an allotted amount of vacation days per year too? Does that work out?
Yeah. So The one thing, like the running joke I have with friends about being self-employed is that, like, you know, being self-employed, like, it's fantastic. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but like, but my boss is a total asshole. And,
it's the guy looking at you in the
yeah,
mirror every morning.
Always like, he's always criticizing. He's always
there.
He's always there. He's hovering over my shoulder all the time. He never gives me vacation. Like, and like when I'm slacking off, he doesn't kick me into gear. And when I'm working too hard, he doesn't tell me to stop. Like, so I've been like, I've been trying to, yeah, I've been trying to like make myself like my own manager, which is a weird process to go through. Of like getting myself to think about myself like as an employee, right? Like, what should I be doing to like improve, you know, my life?
And that could even include rest and time away.
Absolutely, right?
Like
yeah, like a good boss. Like, I think back to the great bosses I had over, you know, working in traditional jobs, and like the best ones I had, you know, you know, they drove me when they saw that I like, you know, that I had potential that I wasn't, you know, that I wasn't unlocking, and they saw that I was able to achieve something, but I wasn't working hard enough for it. But they also like, you know, told me to go home when it was like 6 o'clock, and you know, the work could wait until the morning. And I haven't done the best job of cultivating that in myself. So like that's like kind of a big thing I'm working on right now, is trying to like instill those characteristics of great managers I've had in the past, and like directing them at myself.
Do you see yourself, or do you think it's a possibility that you ever would go back to like, I don't know if this is the right word, but like the traditional working world, like working for somebody else? Like, do you see that as like maybe a possibility, or?
Well, I mean,
I know it's hard to say, right? If things are going well, they're like, no, like why would that happen?
Yeah, of course not. I mean, like in my like post-apocalyptic hellscape sort of nightmare scenario, like I would,
you see yourself back on the construction, like management?
It can happen. Like, well, what I mean to say is like, yeah, as long as things are going like they are now, like, no. But like, you know, sometimes life changes. I would never say like, I would never do it, right?
Like if the right opportunity.
I don't see it. I don't see it happening. At the same time, I do kind of that work now. I mean, I still do
with
traditional
World
work,
Domination
like
Summit and Pioneer
in terms of like,
Nation,
yeah, the World Domination Summit, Pioneer Nation. I help out with a couple other like web projects that I like. I'm kind of like a community manager on. They're not my bread and butter, but they're things that are like enriching to my life, but I don't own the project, right? Like, I take orders from someone else. Like, to an extent, like I have a much bigger say in them, right? Because I've been hired to do it, like, not to just like be a cog in the system, but to actually contribute to the project. And those have been fun. Those have been fun. So, I mean, if things were like went down the tube, like I would never be so elitist to say like, no, I would never take a job. Like I would do whatever I needed to do to like make a living and support myself. But right now, I'm making a living and supporting myself, you know, with my own thing. And so like, yeah. I don't know.
No,
that's kind of a roundabout answer to the question.
No, because of course it like depends on the circumstances and the situation that would present itself. If and I'm sure, and I'm going to say I'm certain you've gotten this question. If somebody was like looking for the push or the inspiration to actually go and start something on their own, like what sort of advice do you give those people?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, if there's nothing pressing, like, try to start it as a side project, right? Like, dabble in it if you want to.
Start with it on the side.
Yeah, right? But like, put a deadline on it, put a timeline on it, right? Like, don't just like dabble forever. Give yourself like a specific amount of time to like try something out and make a decision about whether you like it or not. I also, something I find really useful, and like, unfortunately, I don't know how to like, how to engineer them, but you know, throughout your life, everybody kind of has a number of what I call like life-changing events or life-changing opportunities. Times when you get like fired from a job, or you get like, or you have like a near-death experience, or like someone in your family or someone really close to you dies, and it makes you like think really hard about, you know, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Am I making a difference? Like, am I living the way I want to live? Those moments come like only a few times in your life, like the really big ones. and they give you an incredible opportunity to they kind of force you to think about life in a way that is inconvenient to do in your daily, in your daily grind. And so I would say when those opportunities come, you shouldn't depend on them because you don't get to decide when they come. And oftentimes they're not events that you want to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when they come, don't try to just move past them, right? Embrace the feelings that come with them, embrace the thought process, the serious introspection.
Mm-hmm.
And if something comes to you as if you see an opportunity to change something, jump on it right then.
Mm-hmm.
Because those moments only last a little while. And then a week passes, a month passes, and life gets back to normal, and all those grand ideas, those big changes, those really important things you saw in that moment start to fade away
mm-hmm.
and become easier to ignore.
So that was what we were talking about earlier, the challenges is actually an opportunity oftentimes, right?
Exactly.
That
yeah.
perspective. Very
exactly.
interesting. Have you been thinking at all about what you want to share with the TEDx stage, the people who are going to be coming out to see you?
Yeah. It's been hard. It's really. I have my, I have my risks, or I have my mission, about risk taking and why everybody should embrace it. But I want to craft something special just for that, just for that audience. And I've been thinking about, what do I really want to say? You guys all, your guidance for speakers is always if you could say only one thing in your life, what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's damn, right? I don't know.
Does that mean there's pressure on me for this time?
Yeah, no pressure, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm honing and crafting. I'm working on some ideas, and I know what comes out of it is going to be useful, if to no one else, at least to me.
Awesome. Yeah, the process, right?
But,
Coming back to the process of it.
But yeah, there's definitely something in I want to share people's journeys, the risks that people are taking, and
mm-hmm.
The good times and the bad times, and where these these decisions that they've made based on these life-changing experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's led, and what they've gotten from it. Did it work out? Did it not work out? How has it changed your life?
Awesome.
What is it? What has it meant for you? Stories like that. And I've been on my own, so
yeah.
getting to know, distilling that kind of process down and finding some meaning from it.
Very cool. And if there was any advice that you would give to somebody who's kind of maybe going through a similar path, and you were talking about mistakes that you had made, any big mistakes come to mind over the past couple of years as you've been building Riskology?
Yeah. Momentum is a hard thing to build. So when you build it, don't let it go, right? There have been many times when I've really had a good thing going, and rather than building on it and taking it to the next level, I've suffered from what I call shiny object syndrome. I'm a little bit, I can be a little bit scattered, and I've never been diagnosed with ADD, but sometimes I think probably I have it, and I'll see something really well going on, or I'll have something really good going, then I'll get distracted by something over here that looks interesting, and I'll go pursue it, and as I'm going to pursue this thing and building it up, this other thing that was going really well dies down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's bad to have multiple interests and do many things. When you lose momentum, it can be very hard to get it back. So, when you have momentum, try to keep it going, because an object in motion tends to stay in motion, unless you just let it stop.
But then you have to recognize that you've stopped to understand.
Yeah, once it's it's really hard to it's really hard to let's say your car is dead, right? And you're pushing it.
Yeah.
And you gotta push it. Like to get it started, right? Like you need your friends to come and like help you push it. Like once it's rolling, like you can push it yourself, but and you know apply very little effort to it to keep it going. But if it stops again, you gotta go find more friends to come like help you push it. So once it's rolling, keep it rolling.
That's awesome. Tyler, thank you, brother. Cheers. Excited to see you on stage May 3rd.
Thank you,
right?
sir.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Awesome.
May 3rd. I
Cool.
love it.